Good evening. Welcome to Galactic Terrors, where we bring you the weirdest, wildest, and most imaginative stories from the known universe from people writing in all sorts of interesting genres. We have a fantastic lineup tonight. Our readers include Randee Dawn, Elizabeth Crowens, Trevor Firetog, and Cynthia Pelayo. How are you doing, Carol?
I'm great. Hi, everybody. I'm Carol Geisander. And this is
Jim Chambers. That's good.
Yeah.
I managed to completely forget to introduce myself.
Well, I know who you are, so that's what counts. Yeah. No, it's fun to be here. It's really hot out today in New York City area. Man, it was a weather alert. My car said it was 100 degrees. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, I
So,
barely stepped out today. It was just opening the door. It felt like an oven out there.
yeah, I think so. Right now, it looks like you're out in the field, though. Where are you? Where's your background?
The background is from a local. It's a picture I took at a local abandoned psychiatric hospital.
That seems so appropriate for our crowd. That's
Yes,
wonderful.
it's now a state park, and there's some great hiking there, and
Oh, cool.
wildlife, and all sorts of cool stuff. But they haven't taken the buildings down, and so it's a fun place to go and just kind of take pictures and look around. And,
Yeah, what could go wrong? I'm thinking of a story already. Wait a minute.
right, absolutely nothing. So
Ooh, spooky. Yeah, cool. Well, so August is usually a quiet month in the lives of those who have kids with, in school, and people are taking vacation now as well, and such like that. But I'm really pleased to see so many folks here with us. I'm wondering, the people who are watching us, can you drop in the comment how you heard about our show? I'd love to hear, how did you know that we're here tonight? So let us know in the comments, please.
Yeah, that would be great. We're hoping to keep spreading the word and bringing people in for these readings. Our readers always do an awesome job and bring some great material to the internet, which is a valuable thing to do. There's such a scarcity of content on the internet these days that anything we can do to fill that pipeline, I think, is very helpful.
Well, we fill it with good stuff. How's that? Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Well, there is some good stuff available on the internet as well. Every month, some tremendous folks from Horror Writers Association put some information on the website at horror.org. And the Sears Table of Diverse Works is out now for August. Linda Addison, Janet Joyce Holden, and Kate Maruyama have a list have some suggestions of diverse authors for everybody to check out, and they put it on every month. So please go take a look at horror.org and see who they're recommending there. There's cool stuff to check out every month.
This is a great feature that the HWA does. Mm-hmm. And I've just put the link up in the chat if anybody wants to take a look and go read about that.
Cool.
Learn some more about those authors and those works. And yeah, I think when you're there at the horror.org website, you'll find a lot of other great information too, especially if you're interested in writing horror fiction or genre fiction in general. And I should just say that the Galactic Terrors online reading series is sponsored by the New York chapter of the Horror Writers Association. Mm-hmm. So we've got a core group here in New York, and we launched this back in September of 2020. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary next month. And this, of course, as many things that started in the past year, was a response to the pandemic kind of shutting things down. But we have found this such a valuable way to connect with readers and authors around the world that we're continuing it, and we're going strong. We have some surprises in store for everybody next month at our first anniversary episode. But we've been able to, rather than our traditional in-person readings that we used to do in New York City, and which we hope to resume in the not too distant future, online we've been able to bring in readers from Australia, from Chicago tonight, from where else? The Midwest,
New Zealand as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All over
Canada.
the place.
So yeah. It's been great. It's been a really fantastic feature or series or whatever you want to call it.
It's been fun. And
yeah.
one of the things that we do as well, there's lots of readings out there, but when we were all kind of alone and on our own during the pandemic, we realized we weren't chatting with people as much. So we've made a point to do question and answer with the readers after each of their readings. And so we will encourage you during the reading, please put any questions that you'd like to have answered over there in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook Live. We see them both, and we can ask those questions to our wonderful authors and readers.
And we've gotten some pretty good comments about where people heard about this.
Cool.
I like Christopher Ryan's.
Yes.
You told me, Carol.
Yeah, I did. Christopher's one of my buddies from New Jersey, and he's one of our new members in HWA New York. So glad to see you here, dude.
And Teal had probably the most creative source.
A fever dream of doom and destruction, and then there you were. Okay.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I sense some sarcasm in this one. The joy of FD.
Erica, you're right.
Well, however you found us, that's great. We're happy that you did find us, that you're here and checking us out, and to hear our readings tonight. Please like and subscribe if you're looking at us on YouTube. These apparently are vital things that help YouTube keep running. The more likes they get, the more subscriptions they get to various YouTube channels like ours. It seems that the longer they can keep the electricity on. I know it's a struggling, thing, trying to catch on and establish a toehold with the masses, but any little bit we can do to help YouTube keep going, we're happy to do.
Yeah, cool.
So another item we wanted to just touch on briefly is to mention the HP Lovecast podcast. So this is a podcast run by Nicholas Dyack and Michelle Brittany. And I think you guys are in the audience tonight. So thank you so much for joining us and for doing a special feature this month for August, King in Yellow month. So this is really cool. If you're not familiar with the King in Yellow mythos, it is inspired by a number of short stories written by Robert W. Chambers, mostly around 1895. And it is not related directly to the Lovecraft mythos, although they often get conflated. But the King in Yellow mythos is based on a fictional play, The King in Yellow, that has been banned supposedly around the world, but is still accessible. And anyone who reads the second act goes mad. And one of the interesting things about The King in Yellow, as I segue smoothly into a shameless plug, is the new anthology Under Twin Suns, Alternate Histories of the Yellow Sign, which I edited, and which several of our Galactic Terrors alum have stories in. And I think Nicholas and Michelle have featured or will be featuring interviews and readings from Carol Geisander and from Megan R. Curie, and possibly I might make an appearance on there as well. So for now, I'm going to put the link for I think what I think is the first installment of King in Yellow month up in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much fun to talk with them. Great.
All right. Shall we jump into our readings, or is there anything else you'd like to chat about, Carol?
Oh, I just have one more thing to point out. It's 80 days until Halloween. That's our countdown. So, yeah. Important to know, right?
Yes. I think we should probably have on the HWA website a countdown ticker.
That's an excellent idea. Yeah. Cool.
Gosh. All right. Well, we have probably chattered enough, and I am wiped out. I think the heat is cooking my brain, so I'm probably sounding more incoherent than usual tonight.
Brains.
So I'm gonna hand the reins over to Carol to introduce our first reader.
Excellent. Our first reader is Brooklyn-based Randee Dawn, who writes about the glam world of entertainment by day and fantastic fictional worlds by night. Her short stories have been published in outlets and anthologies, including the upcoming Horror for the Throne, Dim Shores, and Children of a Different Sky. She's the co-editor of Across the Universe, Tales of Alternative Beatles, and co-author of the Law and Order SVU Unofficial Companion. Her showbiz articles have been published in Variety, the Los Angeles Times, Today.com, and Soap Opera Digest, among many others. Her first novel, the humorous pop culture fantasy Tune In Tomorrow, will be published by Solaris in summer 2022. For more, visit randeedawn.com. Randee?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for spending your Thursday night here. And yes, please do go visit randeedawn.com. There's many, many things to do. Keep you interested, hopefully, there. I'm going to be reading to you part of a story that is from Horror for the Throne, One Sitting Readings. It is no longer upcoming. It is out. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and fantasticbooks.biz. So I'm not going to be able to get through the whole story, but that's good because you'll want to get the story after you've heard this. So the story is called Cat Person. At first, no one noticed the kitten, not even the woman in the blue dress. The subway car jerked forward with a gasp, jostling its passengers. One man leaned forward on his knees, craning deep into his book as he smacked on some chewing gum. A teen boy clutched a bouquet of flowers, eyes drooping. The woman in the blue dress poked at her smartphone game, bursting multicolored bubbles in silence. Mew, said the kitten. Mew. A plaintive squeak, a tiny outrage, but it cut through every other sound in the car. The woman, whose blue dress was hemmed in fussy embroidered daisies, glanced around and discovered the source, a wide-eyed kitten, whose olive brown fur pulled away from its face as if it were in shock. It was peering from a mesh-walled carrier resting on the gum-speckled floor. The kitten pressed a paw against the mesh. The tiny beans of its pads were as pink as its nose. Mew, it repeated. The carrier sat between the sandals of a man with very hairy legs, sitting a few feet from the woman on the shared subway bench. He was scrolling through his phone with a thumb as thudding music leaked from a dangling earbud. He was unshaven, in a t-shirt and cargo shorts. Loser, thought the woman in the blue dress, mouth twisting in disdain. Men had no idea how to care for living beings. It had been bred from their DNA, she was certain. Women could accept some of the blame, all those coddling mothers raising spoiled princes. But after a certain age, a person had to take responsibility for himself. Men never did. She turned back to her game. At the next stop, the person seated next to the woman in the blue dress vacated the seat, departing when the doors next opened. The woman slid into the empty space. The train continued uptown into another borough. Mew! Sighing, the woman in the blue dress turned off her phone and tucked it into a pocket, giving it a gentle pat. It was so difficult to find women's clothing made with places to tuck things away. Pockets were outre, possibly dangerous. Who knew what women might secrete away in them? The hidden things of women always bedeviled men. Phone stowed, she pressed down on her hair and slid over a few inches more. The daisies on the hem of her dress now touched the hairy-legged man's cargo shorts. Hello there, she announced. I'm Cleo. He barely glanced up. You're a kitten. Not mine, he growled. Girlfriends. I'm cat-sitting this weekend. Mew, issued from the floor. Well, it's making a great deal of racket, she said. He shrugged. I'm very good with animals. Would you mind if I held it? The hairy-legged man sat up. His free earbud dangled like jewelry as he gave her a look that she knew well, the one strangers used in the city to determine if the person they were in contact with was a nutcase. The woman returned his stare with a wide, happy smile that mostly, but not entirely, reached her eyes. Can't take it out, he said. Might run off or scratch you. Surely it'll kill me if I lose it. Oh, she said, I shan't remove it from the carrier, but having it on my lap might soothe the creature. It'll feel the warmth of my legs. She paused. My thighs. That'll give him something to think about. She had reached an age when the notion of someone considering her thighs was neither alluring nor repulsive, not if it landed her what she desired. Men were very transparent in this regard. "Mew," said the kitten, as if voicing an opinion. "Mew-roo, mew-roo, mew." "Jesus Christ," the hairy-legged man sighed. "Yeah, if it'll get the thing to shut up. Go ahead, lady." Cleo, which was as good a name as any, lifted the carrier and, giving its underside a quick swipe with her hand, set it on her lap. It weighed almost nothing. The kitten barely occupied a quarter of the space inside. The carrier was otherwise empty, no blanket, nor ball, nor treat, just an animal in a soft cage. "Hello, my darling," she cooed softly, pressing one nail against the mesh. She thought of living things trapped in soft cages, ignored by men. "Is this better?" The kitten lifted a wee paw, then settled back to wash itself. Soon enough, it had curled up and was making soft noises that only Cleo could hear. The man returned to his phone as the stop slid by. In a few minutes, when another passenger came on, Cleo moved back down the row to allow him room. When a second joined their bench, she moved again to the end. Soon, there were 3 people between her and the hairy-legged man, who was fully occupied with his phone. At last, a new passenger came on and held the bar suspended above Cleo's seat. She peered into the mesh top of the carrier and melted slightly. "Ooh," she cooed. "That is the most darling thing ever. How old is she?" 8 weeks, said Cleo crisply. "And what's her name?" "You know, I haven't fully decided," said Cleo. "What do you think is a good name?" "Tom," said the dark-haired man sitting next to Cleo. He had on a crisp white shirt and tie and carried his jacket over one arm across his knees. The shirt was not tight, but fitted well enough to reveal an outstanding set of biceps that framed a pleasant, broad chest. "Always called my cats Tom." "But it's a girl," the standing woman argued. "Thomasina is a good name," said Cleo. The standing woman and the sitting man smiled at Cleo, then at each other. "She is kind of cute," said the man. "You just get her?" "Yes," said Cleo. "I am bringing her home. I have a special room set aside for her with a large burlap scratching post, and I purchased a laser pointer and this funny rod with a feather on it. I'm also farming a small patch of catnip that will keep her high as a kite." The man chuckled, and the woman laughed too. "Happy," finished Cleo. "I recently lost my husband." She raised a finger to one eye. "And having something to cuddle again does my heart good." "Is she a rescue?" asked the woman holding the bar. Cleo nodded. "She has a terribly dramatic story, you know. Nearly drowned. She was bundled into a sack with her brothers and sisters and tossed into the river. The rescue society said that her siblings protected her from the water, and while they drowned, she still came out breathing." Another 3 or 4 passengers had gravitated in Cleo's direction as she spoke, listening in. Only the hairy-legged man was oblivious, lost to the music coming from his reinserted earbuds. "You may have read the headlines about this," said Cleo, and 2 or 3 of the onlookers began nodding. "Yeah," said the man with the excellent biceps. "The Today Show or something. Pretty sure I saw that. I was thinking I should go down and adopt one of those little guys." "If I'd have known, I would have," said the standing woman, now also dabbing at tears. "Thank you for doing it, ma'am." Cleo chuckled behind her hand. "All the thanks I need are right here in my lap." A soft sigh escaped several passengers. The loudspeaker announced they were pulling into the next station momentarily, and the hairy man pulled out his earbuds, wrapping them around his phone. He glanced around, and a small smile of relief crossed his face. "Hey," he said, gesturing at Cleo. "I'll take her now." Cleo stared up at him and cocked her head. "Excuse me?" The train slowed. "Come on, lady, give her over. This is my stop." Cleo gently curled her arms around the mesh case. "What are you on about?" Biceps glanced up. "Lady, you know this guy?" "I suppose he's been on the train with me for some time, but..." She paused. "Absolutely not." "Buzz off," said the seated man and folded his arms, which bulged forward appreciatively. "That's my fucking cat," said the hairy-legged man. "She took it from me." "That's not what I saw," said the woman. "She's been taking care of this cat the whole time I've been on the train." The spectators formed a wall against the hairy-legged man. The train rolled into the station and paused before shuddering to a stop. The hairy-legged man lunged forward to grab the case. "Help!" Cleo called. "He's stealing Thomasina!" The wall of spectators surged as the case entered into a brief tug of war between Cleo and the hairy-legged man. Then the subway doors opened, and the seated man tossed aside his jacket, landing a gut punch on the hairy-legged man, who doubled over and released the bag. Cleo leapt to her feet, darting onto the platform just as the doors closed behind her. A scuffle erupted in the car between biceps and hairy legs, and as the train pulled from the station, she wondered if she'd actually seen the glint of a knife being drawn. "Mew," said the kitten. And I will stop there. So if you'd like to know how the rest of that story goes, because there is a bit more you'll want to know about, again, it's in Horror for the Throne, One Sitting Reads, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and if you go to fantasticbooks.biz, that will also lead you in the correct direction. So thanks again for your time, and pet your kitties tonight.
Thank you, Randee.
My pleasure.
So this story is getting quite a reputation, I think. I remember this story. And we get several comments in the chat as you started reading, "Oh, it's the cat story."
Don't give away the ending.
I will not give away the ending, but I will recommend that to our audience that they go out and find the book and read the rest of the story. I remember I think you read this at KGB for some event or other, and
right.
I have rarely been that shocked by the end of the story. So I will give it a big thumbs up. Definitely read the end of the story.
Thank you.
Did you practice much to do those cat noises, or does that just come naturally?
I guess it just comes naturally. I don't actually own a cat, so, I have to use the imagination a little bit there.
Very good. Very well done.
Thank you.
And I guess sticking with the cat story motif here, we'll go to a question from Keel James Glenn. We'd like to know what the inspiration for the story is, and has the SPCA contacted you yet?
Not yet, but perhaps I will be getting an award from them later in the year.
Very good. Okay. All right. How about the inspiration? Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or is this just one of those stories that kind of came to you?
Yeah, it's one of those stories that came to me. The actual early part of sitting on the train and just looking around and seeing people, I think that kind of got my brain going. And I don't recall if anybody actually had a cat, but it just kind of, it was a long subway ride. And I actually own a dress that's blue with fussy daisies on them. So I don't know, I just kind of threw it all together, and it ended one way one time. And then I thought, no, I got to do it a different way. So then I changed the ending a little bit. So yeah, I live in New York, and it's just really a slice of New York that could have happened.
Awesome. And we have a very controversial question for you from Nicholas Dyack. So who was the real fifth Beatle? And this is in reference, I think, to Across the Universe, the anthology of Beatles speculative fiction that you co-edited.
I think the real fifth Beatle are all the fans. We're all the fifth Beatle when you think about it, really.
Oh, all right. Well, that's kind of a cop-out answer, but
sorry.
No,
whatever.
okay.
There was no good way to answer that question. Let's put it.
I'm just no. That is true. All right. On to a more concrete question. Lara Frater would like to know: do you own a fox?
I do not own a fox. However, I have visited foxes at a rescue for canids in California, just outside San Diego. If you look it up, it's JABECC. If you look up Canid Rescue California, you'll find it. But you can go and you can visit and have your own pictures taken with foxes.
Very nice. Okay, so keep that in mind if you need to spend some time around a fox.
There you go.
And I actually had a couple of quick questions for you. One, so in your bio, Carol read about your new book coming out. I think it's next year, from Solaris. That's some pretty big news since you were last on Galactic Terrors. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was a long time in the making.
Can you tell us anything about the book?
Well, in my day job for many years has been writing about entertainment, and I started out at a soap opera magazine. And I thought, what if you married? I like the idea that we are big fans of fae and fairy tales and fantasy, and we make movies like Lord of the Rings or horror films where just horrible things live with us. And I thought, what if that side of thing were as fascinated with our puny little mundane lives, getting all excited about embezzlement? And what if they made TV shows starring us? So the book it's actually going to be about a reality show created by mythical creatures starring humans. But there's mystery, there's romance, there's a security dragon, and there's lots of mangoes. So with luck, it's funny also.
It sounds awesome. I love that. A security dragon and mangoes.
Yes, exactly.
And then I know you recently launched a new reading series of your own that actually takes place in person in the real world.
That's right.
Called Rooftop Readings.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to tell us just a little bit about that and who's coming up in the next few months?
Sure. So, James knows this intimately because he hosted one of them himself, but this is called Rooftop Readings at Ample Hills. Ample Hills is an ice cream parlor in Brooklyn. They have multiple locations, but this is at the Gowanus location. They have a rooftop and an indoor area if the weather isn't so great, but we do every third Tuesday. We have 3 authors. I try to keep it, diverse and varied and a mixed up, different types of writing. And they get about 20 minutes to read. And there is a ticket you have to buy, but you get 2 scoops of ice cream for this ticket, as well as 3 writers. So, 1 ticket, 2 scoops of ice cream, 3 writers. What more could you ask for? Yes. So, and if you're interested, you can find the information I'm trying to think of the shortest way to do it. You can email me or PM me, or you can go to amplehills.com and poke around on their events area. I'm sorry, I don't have a really fast link to give you on this. But if you're in Brooklyn, we'd love to see you. If you're an author, we'd love to have you sign up to potentially read with us. We're going to be starting to book for 2022. So
wow.
long.
That's way out in the future. That's great.
That's right.
And it's a terrific place, and I highly recommend. I think it's the Snap Mallow Pop. It's sort of a deconstructed Rice Krispie treat in marshmallow ice cream. So that was my favorite.
Yes, I have not had a bad flavor there yet. Although just keeping the mango theme, they do have a mango flavor of sorbet. There are vegan versions. So
great. All right. Well, Randee, thank you so much. We will have you back on at the end to talk about what else you have coming up next and some other exciting stuff.
That's great. Thank you so much, James. Good to see you again.
All right. Our next reader tonight is Elizabeth Crowens. Elizabeth is a Hollywood veteran with 2 award-winning alternate history novels, Silent Meridian and A Pocketful of Lodestones. She has stories in Hell's Heart, a New York State of Fright, Black Belt magazine, author interviews in Blackgate magazine, and also writes in the Hollywood mystery genre. You can find her at elizabethcrowens.com. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I have my 3rd novel for my Time Traveler Professor series is coming out on Monday. So I'm going to give you a brief rundown from A War in Too Many Worlds, book 3 in the Time Traveler Professor series. The Secret Diaries of John Patrick Scott pick up close to 1917. British intelligence assigns my protagonist to go undercover in Berlin and spy on one of his former best friends, Francois Poincaré, whom the Brits feel is a traitor. Meanwhile, Scott is keeping a secret the affair that he's having with Poincaré's German wife, Sophia. Additionally, all of the psychic experiments that Scott performed since he met Arthur Conan Doyle in book 1 have resulted in the ability for Scott to see the ghost of the dead, a phenomenon he first witnessed while deployed on the Western Front. Now in Berlin, he encountered a boy ghost, Heine, and a dead German soldier, Private Freund, who he's trained to be his otherworldly assistant. In the segment I'm about to read from chapter 19, Scott poses as a fake clairvoyant, since seances are all the rage, to infiltrate the circles of wealthy Berliners in order to keep an eye on Francois. In my preparation for my pseudo profession as a clairvoyant medium, I went on a scavenger hunt to pick up the necessary props and literally the bells and whistles that I needed to put on a convincing show, and was lucky to find items such as chalkboards for automatic writing at local thrift stores. Putting together all the ingredients for my simulated seance rekindled the same enthusiasm as the time when I attended the University of Edinburgh back in the late 90s, when I ran around town gathering the components to what eventually would become my working time machine. Next, I purchased a copy of Sir Oliver Lodge's famous book, Raymond, or Life and Death. I also found a Victorian book on stage magic that had a trick about table rapping, which became famous by the Fox sisters who started the spiritualist movement. One of my favorite listings was on how to make a ghostly spirit face appear before your audience. I needed to have a children's balloon in a dark color, a black wooden tube about 12 inches long and a half-inch in diameter. The instructions said to glue the open end of the balloon on the inside of one of the ends of the wooden tube and make sure it was dry before going to the next step, which was to blow up the balloon all the way. On one side, I was to paint a cheerful face of a girl, on the other, an evil demonic face using luminous paint. Next was to carve a few notches on the free end of the tube, so a performer could easily know which end to blow while in a darkened room. After exposing this setup to sunlight for a few hours, I'm supposed to suck the balloon into the tube and eventually blow it out during my performance, showing half my audience the benevolent image and the other half the scary one. When I would suck the balloon back into the tube, it would give the effect of vanishing into thin air, and I wasn't sure how comfortable I felt working with volatile chemicals, such as phosphorus, but the spooky balloon ghost seemed doable. Sophia, my lover, found my first wealthy and gullible victim to test my skills. Her name was Frau Anna Dumla, a bereaved widow whose husband had died as a result of T. Lawrence's recent triumphs. She was swimming in excess cash despite the wretched economy. Her house had already had the perfect room, which could be easily converted to perform a seance. From what Sophia described, the dowager was so excited at the prospect that if I was successful in communicating with her erstwhile husband, she'd make space available for future sittings to service the needs of her friends. I almost felt guilty for charging such inflated prices. Maintaining our agreement that we should never be seen in public together, Sophia made all the arrangements to book my trial run, but said she had to bow out of her invitation to join us. After the guest arrived, I urged everyone not to be shy when it came to alcoholic spirits, which were conducive towards relaxation. The other reason I advocated such indulgence was the drunker they got, the less likely they'd notice any slip-ups. At the witching hour, I requested that everyone join me in the seance room. Given our well-heeled attendees, had I also been a pickpocket and a jewel thief, I could have retired in style. One nosy gentleman, who I suspected already encountered a charlatan once or twice, insisted on looking under the tablecloth, but I assured him there was nothing hidden. Then he began picking up each chair one by one. He became so annoying that when he almost tipped over the table on his own accord, I threatened to banish him from the room. After I dimmed the lights and lit the candles, I asked Frau Dunda what objective she wished to accomplish this evening. She replied, saying she'd give anything in the world to have one last word with her beloved late husband. When I shuffled my tarot deck and laid the cards out in a Celtic cross spread, I gave her my brief interpretation. There are forces above and beyond us which will dictate the outcome of this evening's undertaking, I said, being ambiguous on purpose. But will we be successful? The Frau asked. I examined the card, feeling ashamed of the scam I was about to perform. In front of me were the Fool, being Frau Dummler, crossed by the moon, which often signified dreams and deception. The card showing the past, heading into a natural progression into the present, with a Ten of Pentacles, wealth, comfort, happy family, followed by the Tower, an unexpected upending of plans out of one's control. The Ten of Swords, the absolute finality of a situation, and in this case, the demise of her husband, and the Three of Swords, indicating sorrow. The Hermit card signified her fears of being alone. The position indicating friends, family, and outer influences had the Three of Pentacles, which to me indicated my intervention, and having Jaime and Private Freund, my personal ghost assistants, at my beck and call, which gave me an unfair edge, but I was willing to milk it for all it was worth. The card of the Six of Cups was in the position of hopes and wishes. In my opinion, that meant the nostalgia and reassurance of reconnecting with someone she'd been fond of in the past, which in this case, of course, pointed to her husband. And the final outcome card was the Magician, indicating my influence. Then I looked around the table for subtle reactions before conveying my adulterated interpretation, which, of course, had certain portions deleted and twisted around. But the real show commenced through a series of knocks when I summoned my real ghost to do my dirty work. With our routine well rehearsed ahead of time, Jaime began tickling my guests from under the table, a task which he was quite adept since he always did it to me. The men fidgeted and the women shrieked and giggled, but everyone agreed they felt the sensations. Jaime even went so far as to pull down one woman's stockings and unlace people's shoes, except mine, which were off limits. Every so often, he'd tap the table from underneath or shake it and make it wobble. Freund, on the other hand, did most of the heavy lifting when it came to either picking up the table or pulling out chairs while the guests were still sitting on them, causing quite a stir. He was also responsible for ringing bells, taking a piece of chalk and writing on a slate, and flinging objects across the room. During our rehearsals, I warned him to stay clear of candles, incense, and any tricks involving flammable chemicals. I wanted to take the guesswork out of the equation since I had no way of knowing his educational level when he was alive, nor did I know if such wisdom transferred over in death. Freund's grand finale had him running around the seance room covered in cheesecloth, which I soaked in luminous paint, inspired by that trick I saw in the Victorian magic book. I painted on details to his facial features to resemble our hostess's deceased husband. And when I secretly flipped droplets of water on it, extra chemicals in the paint allowed the fabric to ignite. This final effect made the gauzy fabric appear to vanish and caused two ladies to faint. But I, like a true gentleman, produced a bottle of smelling salts out of thin air and came to their rescue. Since Freund was already dead, he couldn't be hurt or affected by any caustic chemicals or flame. Special thanks also had to be given to Sophia, who also served as one of my confederates by conducting a thorough interview of Frau Dummler beforehand. The Dowager disclosed enough of this man's, her husband's, quirks and idiosyncrasies to write his entire biography. She also lent Sophia a photo of her late husband, which I used as reference for my painted cheesecloth effect. Needless to say, Frau Dummler and her guest were in awe, and I received not only a standing ovation, but generous tips from everyone. And that is just a glimpse of what you will see when you read A War in Too Many Worlds.
Unmute, Carol. Unmute, Carol, unmute. How many times have we had to say that online? You're muted. Yeah. I was just so taken by your story, I didn't even pay attention to my technical stuff. That was so much fun to hear behind the scenes of a spiritualist doing something interesting. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I was picturing what the balloon would look like in the darkness, with candlelight or whatever. That would be really cool, especially with a luminous paint. Yeah, really neat. Well, we have some questions from folks. Till James Glenn has a great question, which is something I was wondering too. How much research do you do for the historical stuff? Do you visit the location, pre-pandemic, of course, or is it strictly from books? How do you do this?
I do an enormous amount of research. And actually, this particular magic trick was from one of Houdini's personal books.
Oh, cool.
Yes. And Houdini is a character in, and I'm kind of I don't know what I'm doing. I'm getting away from my camera. Here we go.
Yes, the left is right and right is left.
Yes, I know. And it's very confusing. But yes, this was actually taken from a real magic book that was in Houdini's personal collection. And I was looking for references that I could use. And that's one of the reasons eventually, and of course, Arthur Conan Doyle is a major character also in my series. And I use a lot of real history combined with alternate history. Mm-hmm. And it really was true that they forged, Houdini and Doyle forged a friendship over the seances and the spiritualism, but they also had a major falling out because Houdini had this enormous collection of books. He wanted to believe this was all real. And yet, how can you fool the greatest magician of his time? He knew all the tricks, and this was one of the tricks. So that's why I enjoyed using this particular trick, and it worked for my scene.
So, excellent. So it's like stump the stars kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. And I picture like Lisa Morton's books about spiritualists and all the things they're doing. I've heard her speak on that before. And boy, there's a lot that was going on in those days. It was amazing.
It really was. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I also know that you're quite the Sherlockian. So it's not a surprise to me at all that we have Arthur Conan Doyle in these. What do you do? Are you with the Sherlocks? Is it the Sherlock Society, or what do you do with them?
Well, I love hanging out with the crowd. I do belong to a few scions.
Okay.
During the pandemic, obviously, it's been all virtual.
Yes.
Before that, it was in person, and I couldn't possibly go to as many, all over the world, meetings. That's one of the good things I have to admit about Zoom and the pandemic. Yeah. Is that I could attend something on the West Coast, I could attend something in London, and I don't have to worry about the time or the travel or anything like that. So I've been in touch with a lot of people. It's there's a handful of Sherlockians that I love to consult with. Retired pathologists who are great to say, I need some information about a Victorian autopsy, how did they treat opium addiction back then? Mm-hmm. So I love consulting a lot of these people because they're really into that, and that's the time period I'm working in. Mm-hmm. So I do hang out with a lot of Sherlockians. That is correct.
No, that's very cool. That's cool. I was struck by one of the lines in there where he says to himself, I almost felt guilty for charging inflated prices. And then I was thinking to myself, and yet he's going to run this scam thing. It did say that later,
he totally knew he was running the scam. The funny thing is the guy does become psychic. And he actually, in book one, he meets Arthur Conan Doyle because something strange happened to him. And he figured if anybody could solve this mystery, it would be the guy who writes the Sherlock Holmes story. And it happened to be that it was in 1898. John Patrick Scott, the protagonist, was attending the University of Edinburgh at the time, which was Conan Doyle's alma mater. And apparently, and this is where I really get into my research, I'm very funny with my timelines. I was trying to figure out how can I conceivably put these two people together at the same time to be able to sit and have a conversation in a pub. And I knew for a fact that Doyle was living outside London at the time. However, he tried to run for Scottish Parliament. And I was able to time everything. So yes, he could have conceivably been in Edinburgh during the time, that their fictional conversation took place.
Okay, trying to get out the vote or something like that. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's very cool. That's cool. It's also interesting because, yes, he's doing a spiritualist kind of thing, but it's pretty handy to have Jaime, your own private ghost, to help out with these things,
Absolutely. In book 2, A Pocketful of Lodestones, in the first book, he's just experimenting. I mean,
right. I remember that. Yeah.
And he's also a college student. He's a young kid. He's experimenting with stuff he probably shouldn't be experimenting with. And so is Doyle. And actually, Doyle was an original Victorian Ghostbuster, basically. I mean, he was a ghost hunter. He actually belonged to a real society called the Ghost Club. And he also belonged to a very prominent member of the London branch of the Society of Psychical Research. So he wanted to try, obviously one of the reasons why he wanted to give up and kill off Sherlock Holmes is he really wanted to concentrate and spend more of his time with these kind of scientific proof, of life after death. But also, one thing that a lot of people don't know about Doyle is he wrote some terrific ghost stories. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite ghost stories of Doyle's is, I think it's called Lot 249 or I think it's 249, not 279. But it's where somebody steals a mummy, they reanimate a mummy and have the mummy commit crimes.
What could go wrong there? Yeah.
Like when you kill the mummy is already dead.
Right? It's got no fingerprints. He's all wrapped up. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's awesome. I'm going to have to go look for that story. Well, thank you so much for filling us in on that and reading your story and telling us a little bit about it. This has been great having you on. Thanks much. We'll see you at the end too. Okay. We'll have you come back in. Yeah, that'll be great. I'm delighted to introduce our next reader, Trevor Firetog, who writes out of Long Island, New York. He's the author of the horror thriller novella, Usual Monsters. His short fiction has appeared in various magazines and anthologies, most recently in Under Twin Suns, Alternate Histories of the Yellow Sign. Aside from writing, Trevor collects and restores vintage typewriters. And just a quick aside, he has more than I think anybody I have ever heard of who collects typewriters. So we're going to hear more about that, I'm sure. When he's not reading on the beach or scavenging used bookstores, he's usually holed up in his office working on his next project. Connect with him on Twitter and Instagram at Trevor Firetog. Trevor.
Hi all, I'm Trevor Firetog, and I will be reading 2 sections from my World War II horror story, European Theater, which is published in Under Twin Signs, Alternate Histories of the Yellow Sign. 1. Bastogne, Belgium, December 1944. Ceasefire! Ceasefire, damn it! Hartstock shouts. It's easy enough for me to stop. I haven't even fired my M1 yet. Not that I'm scared of nothing, it's just it's been a while since we've had an ammo drop, and I'm trying to do what I can to save. No sense blind firing at shadows. The Germans have stopped shooting. Stillness falls across the field. In front of our firing line, the field is open for about 150 yards and then ends in the woods. We're all spread out, so our gunfire is coming at them in all directions. It's supposed to even the odds a bit before the Germans figure out how few men we really have. A bit down the line, Reed gives me a shrug. He doesn't actually shrug, but that's the expression in his mind. When you're with these guys long enough, you sort of form a bond. You can always tell what they're thinking. No orders come. No one says anything. A Jerry stumbles out of the woods, unarmed. He looks confused, almost drunk. He staggers from one side to the other, walking toward us. His lips are moving, but he's not speaking. Another one comes out from behind a tree, following him, and then another and another. They're all walking in that same drunken way. 16 men total come out of those woods. The entire German patrol. "Hold your fire!" Sergeant Hartstock calls out. The Germans stagger about the field like blind men reaching out for support. "You okay, fellas?" Boyne says with a laugh. One of the Germans trips over himself and falls. He struggles on the ground for a moment before slowly pushing himself up, teetering a bit before regaining balance. "Whoa there, take it easy, buddy." And we laugh. We can't help it. One of us starts and gets everyone else going. We're all connected that way. Nothing about this should be funny, but laughing is the only thing that feels right. Makes us forget how frightened we are. I keep my rifle trained on one of the Germans, following him as he moves closer. And then all at once, their backs snap straight, chests puffing out, bodies completely still. Their mouths gape open, warm breath pluming in the frigid air. Soldiers along the firing line call out, "It's some sort of trick, don't fall for it. They're fooling us, trying to get us to come out from cover. No, there's something wrong with them, look." And Reed looks to me again, and this time he gives an actual shrug. Someone fires a single shot at the feet of one of the Germans. A gout of dirt jumps up next to his boots, but he doesn't flinch. He stares straight ahead, lightly swaying in some non-existent breeze. 3 men down the line move toward one of them, rifles aimed. I see Private Simon, but I can't make out any of the others. They approach the Jerry closest to them, wave their hands, snap their fingers, shout in their ears, but the German stays still. It's as if he's not even there at all. And they bring him to the ground. He goes down without a struggle. "No," Hardstock calls, moving toward them. "I can't take any POWs." And a storm of whispers falls over the battlefield. Not many are happy about Hardstock's order. This patrol is unarmed, defenseless. Killing them could be a war crime. When word gets out about this, it'll be another headline for the papers back home. If we kill them, we're butchers. If we don't, we're cowards. But we barely have enough supplies for ourselves. Can't afford to take in any prisoners. So it's either this or chaining them up and letting them starve or freeze to death. Private Simon steps away, brings up his rifle, and fires twice at the German's back. He writhes and convulses on the ground, coughing and groaning. His buddies don't move. They don't seem to notice. They remain still, hypnotized. Simon fires again, this time at his head, and a spray of red decorates the snow. Some of the other men emerge from behind cover and step out to the firing line, making their way toward the standing Germans. "Well, hot damn," Reed yanks the bayonet from his muzzle. "Now's your chance, Sager. Let's go make your country proud." And I follow him to the 2 Germans closest to us. Wait, my voice is too weak to stop him. I should talk louder, but I can't. Some part of me wants to see what happens. He takes his place in front of his Jerry, I stand in front of mine, and Reed waves his bayonet in front of the soldier's face, demonstrating his newfound authority. "Any last words?" A thin line of drool falls from the German's open mouth. Reed looks to me and snorts. "Guess that's a no." And Reed grabs him from behind the head and runs the bayonet across his throat. A waterfall of blood spills forward. He drops to his knees, clutching at his neck, tries to speak, but only produces soft gurgles of blood. The German in front of me is young, like me. He looks maybe 19 years old. His freshly shaven cheeks are pink and puffy, but it's been weeks since I've last had a shave. And there's something strange about his eyes. They're all frosted and cloudy. I don't think he can see me. Reed, I think they're blind. Huh? Well, I don't think they can see. Something in the woods blinded them. Look at their eyes. Sager, you kill your Kraut, or you're going to take his place. And I take out my Colt and I yank back the slide. I don't like this. I don't want this. It's a rotten way to die. Nothing honorable about it, but this is war. We were given an order, and all of my brothers are doing their duty. Sporadic shots ring out across the field like little screams, and one by one, bodies fall to the snow. I press the pistol to his head, and as the gun's cold metal touches his skin, it looks like his eyes clear. And that confused, hypnotized expression flees, and fear briefly surfaces in its place. I fire, and his head jerks back as a spurt of brain leaves his exit wound. His body crumples to the ground, feet jittering, blood leaking, pooling in the snow, steam rising. I holster my Colt and try to will my hands to stop shaking. Well, congratulations, Sager. Ride home and let your girl know you're a hero. Reed pauses to light a cigarette. Now flip him over and check him. If you find a Luger, it's mine. 2. The screaming wakes me up. My eyes flutter a bit and shapes move all around my foxhole. Another scream calls from the darkness, short but deafening, and it breaks through the silence of the night. I grab my M1 and climb out of the foxhole. Men are running back and forth, moving all around me. What the hell is happening? My words go ignored. A layer of milky fog curls around my ankles. There are no bullets flying overhead, no orders being shouted. Another scream rattles me, this one from close by. Private Martin stands a little ways down. What the hell is happening, Martin? His eyes are as white as the rising fog, same as the German I killed. More screams, this time in quick succession, and I start screaming too. Can't help it. One of us gets going and we can't stop. My mouth falls open and my lungs empty this terrible, bestial scream into the night. I take off running into the darkness, trying to follow the shapes of my brothers moving about. The world shifts around and the fog rises to my waist. It's getting hard to run. Mud sucks at my boots. The fog grows, swallowing over my head as if drowning me in an ocean of white. My feet don't move. I'm stuck in the ground. A warm wind caresses me, piercing through the fabric of my uniform and breaking the 2-week-long chill I couldn't shake from my bones. I crouch down, drop my rifle, need to dig away the mud from my feet so I can start moving again, but this doesn't feel like mud. It feels wet and gritty between my fingers, and a small wave of water kisses my hands as it rolls past me, circling around my ankles before the tide draws it back. And the fog thins, displaying the black stars that hang in the sky. The forest of Belgium I had grown so used to no longer surrounds me. We scream. We scream instead of speaking. Scream instead of barking orders. We scream because that's the only thing that feels right. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor.
Hi.
Very nice reading. Yes. So we're getting lots of comments from people about the your dramatic animated reading style. Excellent. So let's jump right in. We have some great questions from from the audience. We'll start off with one from T.L. James. Glenn, did you pick a particular battle or time in World War II for this tale?
Yes, I picked, first off, I did a ton of research on World War II, trying to make it as historically accurate as possible. So I picked the Battle of Bastogne, which took place in December of 1944. That was right near the end of the war, and it was a very crucial battle in American history.
Excellent. All right. And a question from Nicholas. What was your first encounter with the King in Yellow, and has it had an influence on your writing?
First encounter I had with the King in Yellow was, I guess, back in my formative years, where I was just trying to read everything I can. And, you know, I studied Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith. And then based on those recommendations, I found the King in Yellow. So I read The Repairer of Reputations. And I guess I'm sure there were other experiences with an unreliable narrator, but that was really one of the first ones that stuck with me. And so I really appreciated reading that, especially for a story that is older, you know, such an important story.
Very cool. Michelle Brittany asks, are there any films that inspired your story? If you haven't seen The Outpost, she thinks you might enjoy it.
I am going to check out The Outpost. I would say it's not a film, but the HBO series Band of Brothers, they did a 3-episode segment on the Battle of Bastogne, and I absolutely fell in love with the setting, the complete feeling of hopelessness that kind of shrouded over the entire American platoon. So that was, I would say, the main source of inspiration as far as setting goes.
Excellent. All right. And one more question I think you'll be happy to answer. This one from Megan Arcuri. Do you have any acting experience?
Yes, I grew up as an actor. I've been on stage since I was 2 years old, and I've acted in films, movies. Well, they're the same thing. But yeah, films, a lot of stage plays. So yeah, a lot of acting experience.
Awesome. That's great. And of course, the remainder of your story goes on to explore the madness spread by the King in Yellow and the yellow sign.
Yeah, it's really fun. I deliberately left out certain parts to keep the readers happy when they finally pick up a copy of the book.
Excellent. All right. Well, Trevor, thank you so much for the reading. We will have you back on at the end to talk a little bit more about what's happening. But before we let you sign off briefly, just give us a quick description of your novella, Usual Monsters.
Usual Monsters is a short novella. It's about a woman who is suffering from terminal brain cancer, and the tumor is sitting on her optic nerve, which causes her to see hallucinations of monsters that aren't really there, that she has to live with. And she thinks these monsters are all in her head until one day her husband is murdered and her niece has gone missing.
Excellent. All right. Well, Usual Monsters, if you have a chance to check it out, I recommend it. I enjoyed it. And Trevor, we'll have you back on in just a bit.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next reader for tonight, Cynthia Pelayo. Cynthia is a 2-time Bram Stoker Awards nominated poet and author. She is the author of Loteria, Santa Muerte, The Missing, and Poems of My Night, all of which have been nominated for International Latino Book Awards. Poems of My Night was also nominated for an Elgin Award. Her recent collection of poetry, Into the Forest and All the Way Through, explores true crime, that of the epidemic of missing and murdered women in the United States, and was nominated for a Bram Stoker Award and an Elgin Award. Her modern-day horror retelling of the Pied Piper fairy tale, Children of Chicago, was released by Agora Polis Books in 2021. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism from Columbia College, a Master of Science in Marketing from Roosevelt University, a Master of Fine Arts in Writing from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and is a doctoral candidate in business psychology at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. Sina was raised in inner city Chicago, where she lives with her husband and children. And you can find her online at www.cinapelayo.com.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to read 2 short stories for you. And the first one is The Cottage. This is your curse too. And the only way to break it is to make it to the end of the story. For if you make it to the end of the story, maybe you too will survive. Woods are places of magic, places of power that radiate energy. Let's not say that there are good things or bad things that happen in the woods, at least not just yet, for there is still a story to tell. Let's just say that this place of fantasy and wonder is a place of energy. Whether that energy is good or bad, does it matter? Because energy is still energy. Energy comes from something and serves something, and I know how to hone all power. I came to be here the same way you came to be where you are, dear reader. There was a mother once and a father once. Whether or not they loved each other, I do not know. I do not know the things of love. I just know the things of practicality, of keeping my small cottage clean, sweeping the floors and washing the windows, tending to my small garden, chopping wood, and making sure there is enough to get me through the cold and dark days, and of course, how to prepare and maintain my herbs, because you see, the lavender that grows in the garden must be cared for. It must be spoken to and watered. And when the lavender is plucked and dried, it still holds all of its power from when it was connected to the earth and bathed by the sun. Lavender is for clarity, cleansing, relaxation, healing, and peace, and so much more. All of my herbs and all of my charms hold power, and my house radiates all of their energy. Sometimes I like to pretend that I do not know what came to be a father. I remember him in wisps of memories and snippets of sound, and every time I make a stew of carrots, potatoes, and beef, I can almost smell him. He smelled of fresh-cut sage on a summer solstice. Mother was with me until her sickness rotted her from the inside out. One day, while picking lemongrass, Mother collapsed in the meadow and asked me to leave her there, to die and sink into the earth and to become one with the great energy from where we all came from and from which we all will return again. I was still young when Mother died, but before she died, she showed me all of her ways, leaving me detailed notes and handwritten books with instructions for creating her tinctures, potions, resins, powders, salts, oils, enchantments, and rituals. With Mother's last breath, she whispered to me, "You are blessed and damned all the same, my child. Consume them with great pleasure, all of their brightness and cheer." For some time, I was able to subsist on what little I had, corn and potatoes, carrots and beets, and when I dared in the earliest of mornings, I would venture to the market, wrapped in my cloak to purchase sugar, flour, nuts, apples, nutmeg, and cinnamon, because the smells of a pie baking in the forest on a summer day is the second most luscious smell I have ever smelled. When I would arrive in town, a great bell would toll, and mothers would be seen fleeing the roads with their small children, demanding that their babies turn their heads from me. And all I can do was smile, because one day I would meet some of their little ones, whether they wanted me to or not. For little children are curious beings, and the woods sing songs that lead me to them. While I was just a girl of 16, those in the market knew not to look at me and into my eyes. I'm not sure where they learned this. Perhaps it was from Mother or from Father, but they knew that one look into my eyes, one look into the gold that encircled my irises was all it took for them to come under my spell. It was that simple, and no one could deny me. For while the weaker ones of my kind may need herbs and tinctures to lure, I just needed for someone to look into my golden eyes, because all of that energy from my woods, from my forest, naturally empowered me. Time passed as it does, My solar returns coming and going, and I aged there in my cottage alone. Many days and nights I would go hungry because as time moved on, the corn and the potatoes and the carrots and the beets all took the taste of grainy sand on my tongue. Even my love of apples and the smell of fresh baked pie hanging on the summer breeze smelled of decay to me. For all I craved and all I needed was what my mother denied herself there at the very end. Her hunger had grown so intense that even my father fell victim to it, for she would rather feast on his bones than another one so small again, and that is what killed her. Still, I have waited enough, and it is time. I know those smells that you so desire, little children. I know the taste on your tongues that you so crave of sugar and honey, caramels and syrup and tarts and cakes. Do you smell that delicious feast I have prepared for you? Can you see my cottage perfectly set in an open clearing? Better yet, can you see my house built of gingerbread and cakes and the windows made of clear sugar? I hear you now, little children approaching. Little brother who reaches up and takes one bite of my door. Little sister who tastes the window, and now you can hear me. Nibble, nibble, gnaw. Who is nibbling at my little house? And when I open the door and let you in, I ask you, dear Hansel and Gretel, are you ready for the great banquet I have set for you? Thank you. That was The Cottage. And the second and final piece is, if you were at Scares That Care, you heard The Forever Awful House, and I will be reading that again. Right now, let me drink some water. Okay. The Forever Awful House. Oh, this appeared in the Campfire Macabre by Cemetery Gates Press as an intro to the collection. The Forever Awful House. Like all rotting and withering houses, this one comes with a story. The eternal story of the house at the end of the block. The tale of a home at the far side of my neighborhood, of your town as well. For we all have a house that we speak of in low whispers, a house in which, if mentioned, turns a room cold and forces its occupants to pause and look to the doors and to the windows to be sure, to be extra sure that something from that very house did not creep out and creep in. Houses such as these should be spoken of in hushed tones, some say. Others say that they should not be spoken about at all. You see, there is the house of the madam who slit her husband's throat and licked up his blood from the gaping wound in his neck. And when the police arrived at her doorstep, she merely walked out the front door wearing black lace and pearls. There is the story of the house in which a man pressed a silk pillow to his wife's face, rage and hate the current that ended her breath. And when his children stood wide-eyed in the doorway asking, "What's wrong with Mommy?" a concoction of orange juice and a sleep aid put them all to sleep. There is then the house of the mother, who saw a lumbering black mass looming over her, and so she committed herself to a bathtub with her newborn, nestled on her chest, submerged in warm water, so the awful thing could no longer find them. You see, however, they all became the awful things, things of story and whispers, town and city scandals, ghosts that peer out windows and wave hello to little girls and little boys as they ride their bicycle past on Halloween night. They are houses that smell of smoke and iron, where the disembodied scream to the living to help me, but their screams are forever trapped within mold-covered, crumbling walls. These houses remain standing, wooden corpses, rarely if ever demolished, for we fear the dust and the rubble from their remains will infect our very selves if we were to tear them down. And so they stand and we watch, we whisper and we wait. Haunted houses are meant to lure, are meant to fall on the lips of those around campfires. And as you speak of another house with gunshot blasts in the walls, dried and caked blood between the floorboards of forever slumbering children, once packed in closets, of lovers decapitated, buried beneath basement floors, and of a mistress who murdered them all with glee and laughed, Know that your words are powerful. For each time you speak of a house like this, of death and decay, another awful house emerges in a new town, a new city, somewhere, everywhere. Thank you. Well done.
Wow, wow. All right. I just have to say, your words are powerful, ma'am. Wow, this is really engaging. I have to say, both of these stories just sucked us right in to what's going on and where we are, and the creep factor. It's everything is said so simply, but it's like grabbing me by the feels. That's terrific.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, we have a couple great questions from our listeners here. Megan has a great question. You're clearly influenced by fairy tales. Do you have a favorite one?
Hansel and Gretel.
Ah, okay.
I just love Hansel and Gretel because it's so sad in the beginning because they're abandoned by the people that love them, and then they turn for help and somebody betrays them, and I just love that brother and sister save each other, and I just think that's fantastic. So Hansel and Gretel, little brother and little sister.
Yes, yes, yes. And it is sad at the end. I'm an only child, and so to me, I don't understand the idea of the brother and sister, but it's great to get a feeling from that okay, you can stick up for each other. So yeah, that's very cool. Lots of great comments about some of the things you said. Gorgeous descriptions, great use of fairy tale references, so evocative, many clappings and all. Laurel has a great question too. And I think this is probably what I was so taken by when you'd finished reading. You so effectively immerse your readers in the five senses. Is that something intentional, or does it come just natural in your writing method?
Great question. That's it's something I've started doing. I didn't do that in my earlier works, and somebody recommended that to me. They were like, not only should every page have emotion, but every page should have some senses. Like if you can hit the five, that would be great. And so it's something I've started doing a little bit more with my more recent work. Depends too what the work is, but I try to really incorporate that. And I know that I read somewhere that smell is it's able to recall out of memory. So you say popcorn and you think of theaters and families and movie nights. So I'm trying to use smells a lot too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was really powerful in the first story because the aroma of the pie baking in the forest, I could just picture that drifting through the trees, the apple pie. And then it comes back again to say, okay, I know what you want to smell. Yeah, that was really cool. That was really cool. Cool. There's lots more applauses and great performances and such, and other folks like Hansel and Gretel as well, which is very cool. So now I have to share with you, I was totally delighted to get to read The Children of Chicago. I enjoyed it so much, and I listened to the audiobook, and that was very well done. I thought, yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, cool. So as a mom, I had a hard time picturing all these things that were happening to these young kids, and I think you handled that so tremendously well. It was not too scary, but what were you thinking about exploring young folks like that?
In Children of Chicago?
Yeah.
It was hard. It was hard to write. But I really wanted to talk about some of there's awful crimes that surround young children, and there's awful pressures as well. And I just wanted to be able to explore how much do we fail adults? We are failing children, and I think that I was trying to probably say that in a way that the people in authority that they were meant to trust, they couldn't trust. There were a lot of adults that just were not there and were not supportive, and so I wanted to talk about that just because I think it's so important to support young people. I've mentored young people. I've always had some type of mentoring program going on. I think I was mentored when I was really young, and it changed my life, completely changed my life. I was a mentor very young when I almost dropped out of high school. I almost dropped out of college. And at every turn, my mentors were like, we're going to figure this out. So I think my life is where it is because of mentors. And so I'm positive adults. So I wanted to talk about that.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Yeah, and you continue to give forward. That's great. Yeah, I got to spend 15 years as a scout leader with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. And don't you find that working with kids keeps us young? You know, it helps. Yeah, yeah. Which is terrific.
I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I mean their creativity and their imagination, and just like even before this, I was like running around the living room, like we're doing circles around the sofa, and it keeps me young.
As we do. Yeah, yeah. Now I just do that with a cat, which is that's fun too. Yeah. Oh, there's lots of praise in the comments for Children of Chicago. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I know it's great, so
yeah, it's a great story.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Alex has a good question too. Your delivery when you read is incredibly polished and emotive. How much do you practice your reading, and what other influences made you this dang good?
And I did a lot of drama when I was younger. That was I learned very young that I didn't have any like physical skill. Well, I ran track in high school, but beyond that, I just did a lot of drama. I didn't do drama in high school. But I did a lot of drama. And then when I started my MFA, and I went to the School of the Art Institute, which does not, at that time, they didn't focus any. It was all arts, very open, creative, not genre focused. And they didn't know what to do with me, and so I trained with playwrights, and so those were my graduate advisors. So graduate advisors. I worked with playwrights. I did dramaturgy. I acted in college and community theater. So acting, I guess. Yeah, acting and working with playwrights.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, they're tremendous readings. I love hearing writing in the author's own words, because the emphasis on the proper syllable to do. So I'm just saying it's silly. Yeah. No, that's terrific. And I'm also intrigued with the idea of writing poetry as well as prose. Do you find that one bleeds over and influences the other?
Oh, I wish it, for me, I wish it did. I really have to be in a different mindset for poetry. I love writing poetry. I've always said I feel like when I write poetry, it's like I'm painting. And when I'm writing prose or a novel or a short story, it's like math. Like I feel like it has to make sense logically in the flow. But poetry, I just feel like I can just let go of myself and just kind of paint with words, and I just love writing poetry. I do try to read a little bit of poetry. I try to read a little bit before I do some fiction to see if that would help. I'm trying.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Oh, that's a very cool idea. Yeah. Oh, it's so wonderful to get to talk with you. Thank you so much for coming on and reading and chatting. I think this is a great. Yeah. Well, let's bring everybody else back on, and we can talk a little bit about what we have coming up, because I'm interested to hear about that from you as well. Yeah. Here's Trevor. There's Randee. We're all coming on. And Jim is outside of his abandoned institution. Yes.
What you can't see about Jim is you can't see that he has the his hands are all handcuffed and everything because he's escaped.
That's right.
Yes. Jim is actually just like this in a jacket. Yeah.
I'm just out for my daily walk.
Elizabeth, I have to say, I could listen to you talk all day about your research. I was so excited to hear about all of your research. It was so fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Yes. No, I'm kind of like a method actor when it comes to research. If I can do it, my book 2 of that series, a lot of it takes place on the Western Front. Well, I went to the Western Front. So, and I actually had to rewrite scenes after going there because I assumed certain things were a certain way and they weren't. So it was a real eye opener on that one. I wanted to think of a Belgian farmhouse similar to an Ohio farmhouse, and they are not the same at all. They're made of different materials, and they are located at different distances to the street. So I learned all that when I went over there.
Cool. It's interesting how everybody does different research. Yeah. Cool.
So what does everybody have coming up in the future, or projects you're working on now, if there's any that you can talk about? Randee, I know we already talked about your next big thing. That kind of slipped in earlier. But
I am happy to talk about it again if you like. Tune in tomorrow, my first novel, hopefully humorous fantasy, coming out next year, next August, I believe is going to be the date. Massive press push, one hopes. And I've got a story in an upcoming anthology that's about the four blank 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 of the apocalypse. I've got the 4 rock stars of the apocalypse. That's coming out hopefully before the end of the year. And what else? There's another story that I also wrote that some very busy editors have had for a while, and I'm looking forward to be able to talk about that, but I can't talk about it now. And yeah, we also mentioned the rooftop readings. So all of you, I mean, Elizabeth already knows this, but Cinna and Trevor, if you want to join us on the rooftop readings, if you're in Brooklyn, please reach out. We'd love to have you.
Road trip. Yeah. Cool. And Trevor, how about you? What do you have coming up, sir?
Couple things. I have a top secret project I can't really talk about. But aside from that, just a couple short stories, and I'm really working on finishing a novel, and then querying agents after that. So that's kind of taken up all of my plate right now.
Mm-hmm. Cool. That's good.
That's plenty to keep you busy.
Yeah. Elizabeth, what's well, your book is out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is going to be out on Monday, and I have another book that's going to be out on October 25th, and it is a slight diversion from what I normally do. I got an artist grant to put together a photo illustrated anthology that is based on my popular sketching contest on Facebook, and it's called New York, yes. Randy's got a promo card. New York, give me your best or your worst. And I picked 10 New York-based writers that have contributed to the legacy of New York. I have a very kind of interesting mix of people. A combination of short stories and musings and memoirs, and my photography. I've been a professional photographer for over 40 years. So I pitched it to a grant committee, and lo and behold, I got a grant. I wasn't expecting this. I had been toying with the idea of doing like a coffee table photography book, and then somebody actually wanted to give me some money towards it. So, but it's a really tight deadline. I found out about this. I received the grant the first week of July, and I have to produce the finished book and actually have a public presentation of it before Halloween. So far it's looking incredibly good, and I'm really excited about it. And I have 4 Hollywood mysteries that I've been shopping around. I'm looking for a new agent, so that's what's been keeping me busy.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Congrats on the grant. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Cool. Sina, do you have anything that you can talk about coming up?
And I can talk about Diabolica Americana. I'm going to have a short story in that. I'm also going to have a short story in Slash Her from Candisha Press. And I can talk about that there will be a sequel to Children of Chicago, but it's not a continuation of the story. It's a completely different story. So it's a new story. New characters, new monster, new focus on a Chicago history.
Cool.
Excellent. Sounds great. Sina, can you just tell us again the title of the books, the stories you read from, are where those can be found?
Sure. The Forever Awful House is in the Cemetery Gates Campfire Macabre anthology, and The Cottage is actually just my own short story. It appeared online once and I took it down, but I just kind of use it for reading. So maybe I'll put it I'll find a home for it someday.
One of these days.
Cool. Oh, it's a wonderful story.
Awesome.
Yeah. What about you, Jim? Anything fun you can talk about?
Well, I have a new short story collection coming up in the fall from Raw Dog Screaming Press called On the Hierophant Road. I'm very excited about that. And some more Kolchak the Night Stalker is in the works.
Ooh.
So I'll be doing some more Kolchak stories.
Terrific. That's tremendous.
How about you, Carol? What's on your horizon?
I have something new, which is just released. This is Taught by Time, Myth Goes Punk. It's a science fiction anthology of punk stories like cyberpunk and biopunk that are all inspired by myth, folklore, and legend. Sina? So yay, folklore and stories, fairy tales. So that's a lot of fun. That's just come out. And I was the editor for this one. And also our buddy from HWA New York, Tail James Glenn, has a story in this anthology as well. So I will actually get to read from this next month here.
Excellent. Yes, and that's a handy segue to some updates. Galactic Terrors airs the second Thursday of the month every month, so please look for us. If you are enjoying the show tonight, we hope you come back. You can subscribe below on YouTube so that you'll be automatically notified. And we also have a nifty newsletter that Carol sends out just twice a month, just once to announce the next upcoming reading, and then once again a few days before the reading, just as a reminder that we'll be going live. And next month, for our 1-year anniversary, we're going to be changing things up a little bit. So tune in September to find out how we're adjusting the format a little. But I'm happy to announce our guests, our readers for September will include Carol Geisander, John Edward Lawson, and Sarah Reed. And because Carol will be one of our readers, we will have a special guest host that night. Megan Arcuri will be joining me to bring you the Galactic Terrors transmission.
Cool. Excellent. Well, it's been so wonderful having you all on. I enjoyed all the stories and all the readings, and it's fun to get a little time to chat with folks as well. So thank you for sharing your time and your talent.
Yes,
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you all. This is great.
All right, and this should be available on our YouTube channel within a day or so. If you want to come back, and if anyone wants to check it out, or if you missed part of the broadcast, or if you just want to share this with someone you think may enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. And check out some of the other ones that we've seen. And by all means, we'll just say it again. Please, if you liked it, feel free to like the video on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. So, thank you much.
All right. Thank you very much to all our readers. We hope everyone enjoys the rest of the summer.
Okay, and readers, you're welcome to hang on for just a minute, and we can chat for just a minute after the video if you have a moment. So, thanks.
Hope to see you all next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Night, night.